Hey everyone, it's Tim from timgonyer.com, and I'm back with another exercise for the sketchbook challenge. I hope everybody's having fun sketching in their sketchbook and really trying to practice every day if they can. Even if you just do 10 minutes a day, do some of the exercises we've gone over, it will improve your drawing. Today we're going to talk a little bit about relationships and hatch marks. Hatch marks is basically when you take, or hatching is when you take a pencil and just make dash marks to create shadow. What we're going to do is draw a picture of a bird today, and instead of using a smudge stick or our finger or any other type of blender, we're just going to do hatch marks to try to create different values. I'm also going to post another video on drawing a skull using hatching and cross hatching, and both of these videos will help you with having another tool in shading your images. You don't always have to use a smudge stick. You can use a smudge stick and hatching, cross hatching. It's kind of a way you can determine your own style. So we're going to talk about relationships and hatching today. And as the week goes on, we'll do a couple other exercises. This one's a little more complicated, so just take your time and be patient and practice. And later this week we'll have an easier exercise. But let's get started drawing the bird. So let's get started with this drawing exercise. What I'm going to talk about today are relationships and cross-hatching. Relationships meaning when you look at an image, there are certain relationships within the image and outside the image that help you get your drawing accurate. I'm going to be using a Kindle Fire here. If you have an iPad, you can use your phone. Any type of digital pad like this is a really great drawing tool. It's really helpful because what you can do is, this is what we're going to draw. We're going to draw this bird today. You can size the image according to how big you want to draw it. Now it's a lot easier to draw the image the same size, and further down the road we're going to talk about drawing images, taking a smaller image and making it bigger. But right now we're trying to keep it a little bit easier. So what you can do, and I like to keep it easy even when I do my own stuff, so to make it simple for me, I just blow up the image and when I'm referencing it and make it the same size. So that's one thing you can do. I want to talk about the relationships a little bit. We did an exercise on negative space. So there are certain things in here that you can see that create unique shapes. Like if you were to draw a straight line down from the beak to the body, it would make this B shape. So those are certain things you want to think about. Like this is kind of an upside down J right here. So those are certain things you want to think about while you're drawing your image. Another thing you want to think about are angles and parallel lines and things like that. So if you look at the front of the body here and you look at the edge, this line and this line are pretty parallel, but you can see the variation that it curves slightly away from this line. So that's another relationship you can think about. Here the body is really perpendicular with the corner. So another thing you can think about. So you want to think about that angle in relation to the outside edge and the bottom. So if you're always thinking about those things, you can kind of get your drawing a little more accurate. Another thing, we'll talk about it once we get drawing a little bit more, but the eye, sometimes it's hard to place it in the head in the right spot. Well, if you just think of the head as a circle and think of where the center of the circle would be, if this is a circle here, the center is right here. So you know the eye is a little above left of center. You can also relate it to the beak. Once you have the beak drawn in, you see the mouth line here. The eye is just above the mouth line. So those are all types of relationships you want to think about while you're drawing. Okay, so let's get right into drawing this bird. And what I'm going to start out is, I'm going to start out with a B pencil. And the first thing I want to do is find, I'm just going to take the pad and take it right off here. So I'll have an image come up if you can't see the image here. First thing you want to do is find a spot that you can draw pretty accurately. And what I'm going to start with is the beak. I know it's an easy curve here, like this, and then there's a angle down. Then another angle down like that. And this underneath the beak curves down. And what happens is this line and this line start to become parallel. So those are all things you can think about when you're drawing in your image. And then connects up. So okay, so I've got the beak in there. That's a pretty accurate beak. Next, what I want to do is start drawing in some other places that I think are kind of easy. So I'm going to look at that negative space shape. Remember, we thought it looked like a B. So if I made an angular B, if I'm thinking right here, there's a line here, and this is a B, with the bottom part of the B a little bit longer. That's exactly what I'm thinking about. Okay, if I drew a line here, this is a B, this bottom part of the B part is longer than the top part. Okay, those are all little things you can do to make your drawing easier. Now, what I like to do is I look at my image, and sometimes I do these little ghost lines. I'm not actually drawing the line, but I'm just getting my hand moving a little bit. And looking at the angle of the picture and trying to determine, is my pencil moving in the right angle as the picture? Okay, and once I've got that in there, I can already see a little bit of a mistake. So I'm just going to erase this a little bit. This angle here is a little more up than I had it. So those are all things you can look at while you're drawing all these little relationships. Okay, then I'm going to draw in, just kind of draw in this kind of faint line here under the beak. Okay, then the line for the head is really curved. I'm going to draw in the mouth because it's a good reference line. And again, when we talked about the eye, if we have this as a circle here, the eye is above the mouth and it's just above the mouth a little bit. So I made it a little too high there. And remember, you can always adjust these lines a little bit. Okay, so now this front of the body comes down, and like we talked about before, once it gets down to about the neck area, we've got an angle right here, but the body straightens out and is almost parallel with this line over here. And then starts to curve away. Okay, now if you look at that negative space again, we can kind of determine where the wing starts. We know we go past this angle here, and then it's a downward angle. And this is a very long triangular shape. So I know this is going to curve up away from this part of the body. And this part's going to curve down slightly until they reach a point together. Now we know that this is the tip of the wing here, that this body shape is like a U, if you just turn the U up a little bit. So this line and this line are almost mirror images. This line goes this way, this line goes this way in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to slightly curve this line like that. There we have the body. Now the tail follows the same path as the wing, just a little bit lower. A little bit of a curve. So again, you have this kind of funnel triangular shape, just like the wing. But then it kind of kicks out the opposite way, while this line kind of stays pretty straight. Okay, then we have the leg. If you just kind of follow this line down a little bit, there's a little space, and then there's the leg. And then the other leg, which we'll worry about here in a little bit later. Okay, we're going to focus now up on the bird itself and talk about shading and adjusting your lines. Okay, once you have your initial outline, what you can do now is go in with your eraser. What I like to do is just kind of lighten up my lines a little bit. And any line that I'm not happy with, like this, I'd like to bring in a little bit further. And this, bring up a little bit higher, and then down flat. Okay, so after you make that initial shape, that's a good time to go in and adjust some of your lines. So we got a pretty accurate drawing just talking about relationships. What we did was we looked at the edge of the paper down here. We looked at different types of shapes that are easy to remember, like the B shape in here, or the U shape here, or the J shape here. So just remember that when you're drawing, is try to think about relationships as you're sketching. It'll be much easier to get an accurate drawing. Okay, what I want to talk about now is cross-hatching. It's a form of shading, and I'd like you to try doing this bird all in either hatch marks or cross-hatching. So what I'm going to do is, I'm sticking with the B pencil here. Just going to block in the eye a little bit more. Hatch marks are when you make little dash marks like this. Then cross hatching is when you cross over the eye. So it's nice with feathers because you can do little cross hatching. In the direction that the feathers are going. So little hatch marks like that. Then cross hatch to make it a little bit darker. So what I'm doing now is looking at the value and cross hatching in, or putting hatch marks in where I see darker colors. So this under the beak is a little bit in shadow, so I'm doing really, really light little hatch marks. Don't forget about your line work either. Some areas you want to have a little bit of a darker line. And some areas you want to go a little bit lighter. So I'm going to continue doing hatch marks where I see some of the darker feathers. I purposely did a bird because we're going to talk about hatch marking and cross hatching a lot in the next couple weeks. And a bird kind of has some natural hatch marks all over it. So try to shade in without your smudge stick here. We're shading in using hatch marks, just little dashes. I've got the breast area here. It's got a kind of a crease in it. So just doing vertical hatch marks to darken. Under here it's much darker, so I'll do some hatch marks like that and then cross hatching. Okay, underneath the beak is a little bit darker. So I'll do a little hatch mark here, leaving this top part light. I'm just going to reposition the eye just a little bit. Just moving it a little bit closer to the beak. Not much, just a tad there. Okay, you can always make adjustments. It's part of drawing is you don't always have to leave everything where it is. You can make mistakes and you can go back and adjust. Okay, once I've got some of my hatch marks in there, I want to switch to my white. Now if you're using white paper, just continue to do hatch marks, slowly build everything up and leave some of your white. But we're going to keep doing hatch marks with the white pencil as well. you can see here that this part of the body has a highlight on it. So just doing hatch marks down through where I see the light. Okay, and then under the eye, again, hatch marks. Top of the head. Okay, and then in this section here, it's a little bit lighter. Now, I'm not pushing really hard. Under the beak, it's a little bit lighter feathers as well. I'm not pushing really hard because I want to leave myself some area that I can go brighter. Okay, and then on top of the beak has a little bit of a highlight on it, so you can just kind of color that in. Okay, so it's starting to take shape now. What I want to do now is there's some feathers on the wing, and what I like to do is look at the angle. There's an angle coming down where the feathers split here, and then there's another angle coming down here. And I try to just imply the feathers rather than really go into super detail. Once you've implied them a little bit, you can go in and look where the light is. It kind of comes down that first angle, and then the tips of the feathers. You can just kind of imply some of that there. So it's all about implying things. You don't always have to worry about so much detail. The feathers themselves are a little bit darker, so hatch marks again on top of the feathers. Okay, next what I want to do is sharpen up my white pencil the best I can. Get a nice point on it. I'm going to go into the eye. As long as the eye's in the right spot for you, you can go ahead and put a little highlight on the eye. And then with your pencil you can fill in around . Okay, what I want to do now is switch to 2B and a 4B. I'm going to start with the 2B pencil, and I'm going to come in again with hatch marks, trying to determine where the dark areas are. Right by the eye, just doing hatch marks, no smudge stick here. No finger, just hatch marks. And line work too. You can do work on your line work as well. So the bird is much darker. There's a little reflected highlight like we talked about with the sphere right along the base here. So we're not going all the way down, but we're going to darken up using hatch marks. Looking at where the darker areas are. Just going to soften that line a little bit. Okay, I want to keep going back and forth between my white and my dark, so now I'm going to go with a little more pressure on my pencil. I always want to call it a brush since I do so much with painting lessons. Hatch marks again. The sharper you get your pencil, the more fine your hatch marks will be too. So if you want to get a good variety, just sharpen your pencil up really sharp. Make sure you're trying to highlight with these hatch marks and not your smudge stick. It's good practice to get a different type of highlighting in. Okay, we'll highlight the ends of these feathers a little bit. Okay, I'm going to switch now to a 4B. Just going to sharpen it up. Again, little hatch marks. I'm going to post another video about hatch marks and cross hatching as well, so there will be two videos. One will be a little bit more direct about hatch marks and cross hatching. This one's a little less direct because it's more about drawing the relationships. Darken the eye a little bit. A little bit more weight on the line for the mouth. A little more weight on the line for the wing. Do some dark hatch marks here. Do some cross hatching. Put a little more weight on the foot. Now the foot flares out here like that, and then it's on a branch, so we'll just kind of lightly draw in a branch, and the fingers curl around the branch. You can see one of the claws. And I'm just going to imply that. I'm not going to really do too much detail on that. Then you have the other foot clutching on right here. And the branch continues up. But I'm not going to go into too much detail with the foot right now. We'll come back to it in a second. Okay, now I want to go back with my white. We'll go another round here, the little hatch marks. And I'm going to bring some of this white down through my darker gray, and then this reflected highlight down here as well. Okay, I'm going to go with my 4B pencil now. Just going to darken a few more spots, want to get the contrast up some. Maybe we'll put in some heavier line work just for kind of a stylized look, kind of cut him out from the gray paper. Do some more little hatching in through the rest of the body. Okay, we'll put a little detail into this foot now. It's kind of hard to determine how the foot's going, but the thumb of the foot is going in around the branch, and then you've got the fingers wrapped around. We'll darken up both of these feet. Okay, we don't want to go too detailed too quickly, so we're going to keep it a little less detailed. Okay, I'm going to go another round of my white. Really want to bring up the value here to this area where there's light coming through. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 4H pencil, and since it's a really sharp pencil, I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on it so I can get some darker lines. But I like the sharpness of the 4H because I can create little textures within the feathers by using these little hatch marks. So we know this isn't a white bird, so by adding in all these little hatch marks, you're creating little shadows in the feathers. Okay, and I'll just kind of firm up these lines a little bit for the feet. Okay, and then I'm going to go in with my white one last time. All the way down through, even the darker stuff, because we want different values all the way through the bird. If you keep your white pencil sharp, it won't smudge the lead quite as much. I'm just going to put a little highlight on the wing. Okay, with my 4B really sharp, I'm just going to add in a border line to some of the bird, just because the paper is gray and it's hard to determine some of the lines, so I'm just bringing them out a little bit darker. Okay, I'll just lighten up this part of the tail. Okay, so that covers drawing a bird using just hatch marks for shading, a little bit of cross hatching, not too much. If you want to learn more about hatch marks and cross hatching, watch the How to Draw a Skull with Hatch Marks video that I post, and you can learn a little bit more about hatching and cross hatching there. This week I'm going to post some more drawing exercises. We're going to go back and forth between simple and complicated. So this one's a little more complicated, but next exercise will be a little more simple. But we started talking about relationships, and we want to continue talking about relationships so we can get accurate drawings. So the next exercise we'll be talking about plumb lines and how to determine where everything is placed on the paper. So if you have any questions, you can post in the Facebook group page and post your results in the comment section underneath this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.